This is Norman Wolfe. I am the founder of Quantum Leaders, as well as the author of The Living Organization and founder of the Living Organization community. On my episode for the Business Growth Architect Show, I will show you how to lead an organization from the perspective of it is a living being, not a machine. How it will free you up as a leader to focus on the things that are important for the growth of the organization, not running the day-to-day details, and how to get your people in the organization to take ownership for the success of the collective. Head on over to the podcast to catch the full episode. I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
And hello, fabulous person. Beate Gillette here. I am the host of the Business Growth Architect Show, and I want to welcome you to today's episode where we discuss how to navigate strategy and spirituality to achieve time and financial freedom. Truly successful people have learned how to master both, a clear intention and a strategy to execute that, in a spiritual practice that will help them to stay in alignment and on purpose. Please enjoy the show and listen to what our guest today has to say about this very topic. And welcome back. Your host Beate Gillette here today with Norman Wolfe, the creator and founder of the Living Organization. And we're going to talk about something very, very interesting today, which is actually a conversation I've never had on the show, Norman. So I'm really excited to have you. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. It's an honor that you invited me.
So I got to ask, what's a living organization?
Well, that's a great question. I created it because I was running into the issue of how difficult it is for owners, founders, leaders of organizations to be able to achieve the results in today's world. If you look at the statistics, McKinsey and Price Waterhouse and all the others run studies, and they say that organizations fail 70% of the time to achieve their strategy, their goals, implement their new initiatives. And as I looked at that, I put that in the context of the fact that we have a wealth of information coming out from academics, consultants, other leaders who have been successful, the 30% who are successful. We know how to lead an organization. Question for me was, why aren't we being more successful? Why aren't we moving that needle? And what I concluded is we have a paradigm, a framework of thinking of an organization as a machine. Takes inputs, goes through this black box, and produces outputs. Mm-hmm. And the role of a leader is to design that machine and to fill it with the right component parts, whether that component is a person or a robot or a new technology. The whole idea is to make that machine efficiently take the inputs and produce outputs. The problem, and that's not bad. I'm not judging it. I don't have any judgments against it. In fact, in many situations, it's perfect. But in today's world, that's very slow and it's cumbersome, and it puts a lot of pressure and demands on the leader. So I took a different approach. In my experiences, I found organizations to be living entities. They're alive. They have a soul, a purpose, a reason for existing. And collectives, when collectives come together for a common purpose, they begin to operate as if it was a single living entity, a person. And that collective has a soul, a purpose, a reason for existing, a personality style, an interaction style, all the things we attribute to humans. So the Living Organization is taking the approach that the best way to improve the performance of an organization is to find out how to optimize the performance of this living person called an organization.
I really love what you said. I always tell people that work with me, and most of our listeners are not part of a large organization, but they are small business owners, entrepreneurs. But I do believe that there comes a point in when you grow your business where it's becoming its own thing. I always say it's like a baby. You feed it, you teach it how to walk, you teach it how to dress, to eat. And there comes a point when you kind of like have to let it go out in the world and have its own experiences. Is it like that?
It absolutely is like that. In fact, I use that metaphor. In fact, I was working with entrepreneurs like your audience that helped me understand this notion. I've always heard the entrepreneur, when I talk to them about their organizations, they talk about it like it's their child. They gave birth to something. It's their baby. They can't let go of their baby. Well, the problem with that is if you treat it like a baby, it stays a baby, right? So In the living organization framework, we ask leaders to think about their organization like a child they are raising. I love the way you said it, be about it's to cultivate it, nurture it, help it develop, help it grow so it can sustain itself. In the machine paradigm, we teach leaders to be responsible for solving the problems of the organization and giving guidance to the people in the organization on how to resolve those issues, whether that be strategy or a new initiative or anything else. If we did that to our children, we'd have children that were living in our basement at the age of 35, and we're wondering, why can't they live on their own? I mean, have you, but that's how we treat our organization. So I totally agree with you. The goal of a leader is to think of it in a new way and to help the organization sustain, or I should say, to develop itself so that it can sustain its growth as it moves out into the world. So you're 100% spot on. And that's why we wrote the book, and that's why we created the model, is we have to help leaders think of an organization from a different perspective because they're stuck in that paradigm, and it causes them no end of problems.
So my next question has to be then, naturally, how early do I start with this? I mean, if I'm by myself, if I'm the CEO, let's say I have an outsourced team of 4 or 5 people, maybe one employee, when is it time for me to begin taking a look at this, not as an extension of myself, but as its own thing?
I would say almost from the beginning. When my daughter was born, my youngest daughter, I think I was in my 40s. And I remember driving home one day and having this sort of epiphany that I, as a parent, am not responsible for my daughter. She has her own soul and her whole purpose for living here. My goal is to be steward of that soul to help her until she can handle it for herself. Right? So it's shifted my role. It's almost like what I'm asking leaders to do, from being the one solving her problems for her to constantly be mindful that my goal is to help her solve her problems for herself. So give guidance. And I was always looking for opportunities that showed up, experiences that she had to make each one a learning experience. So let's apply that to an organization. I've got an organization. I've got 3, 4, 5 people, maybe. Maybe there's only 2 of us, right? And something's going to come up. Well, with 2 of us, it's pretty easy. We have a conversation. But now let's go to 4 or 5 people. How do I help those 4 or 5 people understand the decision I'm making and why, so the next time they can do that? And then the next experience we have is new to them. And I help them understand how I'm making a decision and why. Now we've got 20 people. And I've just developed 4 or 5 people who can make decisions like I do for the good of the collective, for the good of the whole family, if you will, for the good of the organization. And they can teach their people how to make decisions as they would. So now you've got an organization that's constantly self-maturing. I like to look at it as a maturation process, because that's really what we're doing with our children. And therefore, we're helping the organization as a whole grow and grow and grow. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I'm dealing with. The very question you asked, why can't my people make the better decisions on their own? Why do they always need me? How do I get out from under the day-to-day stuff and let me think about the future? Well, if you had kids that weren't living in your basement at the age of 35, you'd be able to do that. So I'd start from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of what you just said that I want to unpack a little bit. What I'm hearing you say is that it's almost like I felt like if I don't do what you just said, I'm going to be detrimental to my growth, because then I want to be in charge. So you are saying that how quickly can I put somebody else in charge? Am I hearing this correct?
That's a beautiful way to say that. Absolutely. And I can talk about my own organization. We're new. We're just starting out. I didn't start bringing on other consultants until about a year ago. Over the last year, we grew to 10. I have, from day one when I started that, been paying attention. How do I get these people that are joining into this community I'm building to be able to understand the depth of what we're trying to bring, understand it not just at an intellectual level, but more of an embodied level. So I pay a lot of I take 3 months to bring somebody on board, to take them through a very rigorous, I don't want to even call it training, I call it an onboarding process. because it's not about just giving them information. It's about indoctrinating them, having them understand how I think and why I think that way. I'm not dictating it to them. It's an exchange of ideas. But the more they get the notion, the more I feel comfortable letting them run by themselves, right? And that's really what we want to do. So I don't think it's ever too early to start this process. And it's not even a process, it's more of a mindset shift.
It certainly is. I mean, my experience here would be very simple, is that when we lost our belongings, our house, our cars, my office, podcast studio in the fires, we were so shocked and traumatized by what just happened that we were not capable or able to make decisions. And what we found is that our kids, given the opportunity of being incapacitated, so to speak, stepped up to the plate. Who knew? They have the schedule. They're picking us up. We are having breakfast at 9 o'clock here. At 10 o'clock, we're going to go pick up the car. I'm going with Gary to go here. You going with Jenna to go here. We're going to pick up some clothes over there. We're going to buy underwear and socks over here. It was all laid out. But usually we were the ones that do that.
That's right.
What is it that shifted? Is it us letting go of control, or is it something else?
It's probably a combination of both. First of all, I would say you obviously prepared your children in a way for them to think on their own. Now, there's a dynamic that happens, and I see this all the time. I can even give you an example of it, where when you enter into a relationship, people begin to establish sort of a equilibrium about the relationship. So even if I'm capable of making decisions, if you're always making the decisions, I'm going to let you, because that's sort of the equilibrium of the relationship, right? I had a situation where executives of a company were talking about how the CEO was too micromanaging. So I talked to the CEO, I got him to stop. The next thing the executives were telling me was, he doesn't care about us anymore. The changed behavior was so disruptive to their way of being that they were uncomfortable with it. He gave them what they wanted, but they weren't prepared for it, right? So obviously you developed your kids to be able to handle it. The gift to you was the realization to say, hey, I can really let go and they can take care of it. Isn't
And the
that
same thing. Yeah. And the same thing.
Wouldn't CEOs love to have children who can take care of the organization for them? I mean, isn't that what every CEO really wants?
That's what we want. And the same thing happened with the business. I realized that my employees knew what I
Do
was
what to
going
do.
through. And they literally just went, okay, the only decision you have to make is this or this. And they were repurposing content, and they were utilizing our tools to create little graphics on social media. So things were still moving forward until I landed. And I was like, this is amazing. It just shows you that the power of being in the path of the growth of what you're trying to build when you're trying to make too many decisions on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the machine paradigm, where the leader is required to make all the decisions, just stops everything. Crisis situations force us to recognize where we are on the maturity curve, whether we like it or not.
Oh, I love that. Say that one more time. So
crisis situations force us to see where we are on the maturity curve. When you are in crisis and people around you step up, you know they got a higher level of maturity than you may have thought they had. It also tells you where you are on the maturity curve. How much can you trust other people to take care of things like you would normally take care of? I'm sure you've learned through that process that, hey, I can delegate more to my people than I thought before that. Isn't that wonderful now? It's gone. Now you can start over.
Because they have proven to me that my over-involvement apparently is hindering their ability to contribute to the level they're able to contribute. What does this do to the people in your organization? How do I read the room now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I'll go back to the concept of maturity. One of the things I developed with a couple of professors over the last 5 years is an instrument that we can measure maturity. What are the attributes necessary that allows us as leaders or as parents to recognize they're capable of handling more? The fundamental thing that tells us whether people can handle more is, are they thinking? There's three things. One is, are they thinking in terms of the bigger picture? Are they making decisions necessary with all the right kind of information? And can they deal with uncertainty and complexity and those kinds of attributes? High and mature people can do that. The other thing is, can they deal with, I hate to use the word conflict, variety points of view? Can they listen to others' perspectives and balance their decisions with that of others' perspective? And the third thing is, how well are they willing to grow from their own mistakes? Can they reflect? Can they learn? Do they have to protect and defend their ego, so to speak? So those are the three major categories we've identified as what helps us define maturity. And if you think about what lets you decide that your kids, when they were younger, say in their teenage years, I don't know how old your kids are now, but when they decided, how am I going to decide I should let them drive on their own? How am I going to let them decide when they set their own curfews? That's a way of delegating, really. And what attributes are you looking for? And one of the key ones is, are they looking out for the welfare of the collective over their own individual welfare? Not in place of, not either or, but do they see how making a decision for the good of the collective, the bigger whole, will help them be successful? So those are some of the key attributes we look for when we decide, can I give them more authority? So part of what we've done is broken down that decision-making process from years of experience from working with professors on how do we as leaders know how to do that? Because it's a critical question.
And this is all part of this methodology you talk about in the living organization that you've developed. Should we talk about this a little bit? And will you give us a little bit more insights? What is part of this methodology you developed?
I call it a framework. I don't like the word methodology. I think the first part of it is the shift of the paradigm, shift of the mindset. You have to begin to think of your role as a leader as nurturing, like you said at the very beginning, you're nurturing and developing the capacity, which is the capability and maturity of the organization. That's your role of a leader. Right? You do, as you said, you do have to literally set the context. That's another role, right?
Yes.
We have to define who we are, why we exist. That usually emanates from the founder of the company to begin with. And it just becomes imbued in the living entity we call the organization. But you have to do that. And you have to, because it's the thing that brings people together. It's the thing that makes a collective of people more than just a group. It makes it a community. It makes it a living entity because they're all coming together for the common purpose of this collective. And so you want to make sure you have that well defined. We call that the strategic compass. That's the tool we use to facilitate that. And then you want to learn. So those are some of the key skills. We got 7 core principles associated with that. I won't take up time to go through all of them necessarily. You want to learn some new skills as a leader. Primarily skills oriented with using your instinct and your intuition, your sensing mechanism to sense what's going around, not just your intellect. Not in place of your intellect, don't get me wrong, but we want to add to it the ability to sense the room, as you say. Right?
Well, that's the energy. That's why our show is about merging spirituality with strategy, because that's the intuition, that's the energetic connection, the resonance you're creating, the vibration.
All of that, absolutely.
Yes.
And one of the key skills we teach leaders is, we call it heart centering. But it's really just a methodology to help people focus into, how do I sense that energy? In fact, the second principle of the living organization is everything is energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed. So the creation of results is a process of transforming energy. So very aligned. It's all about energy.
You know, I mean, I'm going to just ask you this sort of an off-the-cuff question, but have you found, like I have, that people always look for all these external things, and that at the end of the day, unless you start an internal journey, the external will not perform?
Absolutely. And that not only holds true for us individually, but it holds true for the collective. There's a saying by Mahatma Gandhi that goes, be the change you want to see in the world. And people don't really understand what that means. Our state of beingness, which is the energy, the frequency of the energy that our body is vibrating at any point in time, is what's manifesting the outcomes we experience. It's really that simple. So if you want to have a different outcome, all you have to do is change your state of being. Principally speaking, it's easy. You and I know it's a journey in life.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're talking about. It's been 2.5 months since I've lost everything. So my state of being significantly changed, not by choice. But I do believe that things happen for you and through you and not against you. So can we talk maybe a little bit about, so let's say somebody's having a really difficult time right now. I just was on the phone earlier today, spoke to somebody, and she had like one really big key client who literally fired her a couple of days ago. And it was her main source of income. And, it wasn't the greatest relationship, and they took up all her time. It prohibited her from doing all the things we talk about, delegate, build up the next book of business. What are we telling people that are turning on the news, that are looking at their portfolios, that are looking at the economy, that are looking at the doom and gloom? What are we telling them right now? Where's the opportunity?
That's a tough one, B. And I'm sure you're living through it like I am.
That's why I'm asking you, so I don't have to answer it.
I think you've covered 2 or 3 points I want to circle back on. One is what we said about creating from the inside out for an individual, a state of being. I think it's important to know that collectives do the same thing. Companies create their outcomes by who they are collectively being in the world. So I just wanted to kind of touch back on that. The other thing you talked about is this woman example. You said something I thought was interesting. It was a client that wasn't really working for her anymore. It drained her, but it provided this sense of security in the income. We drive a lot by following that instead of our passion or our calling or our heart, whatever you want to call it, right? That inner voice. It's comforting, but it's also debilitating. And I have numerous experiences in my life when I didn't listen to the inner voice and how the universe told me, you will follow a different path. And so my suggestion there is, to the degree we can, have the courage to follow the inner voice, because it's more wise than our ego-based voice.
100%, yeah.
Doing the right thing is always very challenging. I have yet to experience. It gets easier the more I do it. That when I follow that inner voice, it's scary, but I know it's the right thing. At the end, so it becomes easier. I'm willing to go through the discomfort it requires of me. But you don't grow if you don't go through discomfort. There's a song I used to listen to years ago. I don't know the name of the song, but it had a verse in the chorus. Ships are safe within the harbor, but is that what ships are made for?
Yeah, the other version of that was, a great sailor was never made in the harbor.
That's true. That's very true. So we're meant to go through these difficulties. So why not learn to embrace them as part of our ability to be able to do more in life? The third one I want to touch on was this issue of how do we deal with what's going on today? And it sort of goes back to the other 2 issues as well. I'm a firm believer in working diligently, and it's not an overnight thing. It's not a weekend workshop. It's a process of really finding out what you're meant to contribute in this world. My calling has become very clear to me starting back in the 90s. I didn't know how it would look, but I was called to write the book. It was literally something I had no intention of doing. Somebody suggested it. I rebelled against it, but the voice wouldn't go away. So I wrote it. It took me 6 years. I wanted to retire. When the book came out, I think I was 64 or something in that range. The voice kept saying, no, you got more to do. This is my calling, my dharma, my path, my purpose in life. The more we can focus on that, the more we can navigate through chaos. because I don't care what the rest of the world is doing. I'm doing what I'm meant to do.
Oh, what a beautiful message.
And it's the same thing for companies. You know, if you go to Target, if they stay true to themselves, they navigate it. Sure, they may get bumps and challenges along the way, but they would know how to respond and stay true to themselves. One of the companies that I've always admired is Costco, not because there's one major reason. They have constantly rejected stockholders' demands that they reduce salaries on their employees so they can make more money. And Costco kept saying, no, that's not who we are. We are here to serve people, and our employees are the key to that. That's what makes Costco successful. And they stay true to that time and time, shareholder meeting after shareholder meeting, board meeting after board meeting. They stay true to that, and they stay true to it today. And
the stock price is amazing. It does
amazing,
nothing but go
right?
up. Yeah, I'm a shareholder, and I think that we need to look at these models. I do believe that these models are changing, though, that this more money, more profits for a few shareholders is giving back way to an overall better experience for everybody, because if the people that are performing for us are not having their needs met, it cannot work.
Cannot work. That's right. You know, I wrote a blog not long ago because I was hearing all this work about stakeholder models, and they always include employees as a stakeholder. And I wrote a blog is employees are not stakeholders. And the thing behind the blog is this. If you look at who are the stakeholders, and you take away investors, take away customers, take away suppliers, take away everything except a group of people who are committed to a common purpose, you still have a very viable organization. It may not be profitable yet, but you still have a living entity that's committed to creating something. Take away the people,
you get nothing.
And nothing. So
that's what I think, that this whole AI conversation, AI is a tool.
It's a tool, yeah.
That's it.
It's no different than the PC was, or the computers, the mainframes before that, or robotic arms.
Or Microsoft Word or
Microsoft
Excel.
Word,
Yes.
right. Yeah, it's just a tool. And it's not going to replace humans. Humans are unique. There's nothing like humans in all of nature anywhere. And the unique things about human, and the thing that the machine paradigm actually destroys, is we are creative beings. We create reality through the stories we tell, through the meaning we make. If we want to learn how to fly, we're not limited by our genetic limitations. We figure out how to fly like birds. We figure out how to go to the moon. We figure out how to dive deep into the ocean like fish, right? We are phenomenal creating beings. And when you put people in boxes and say, you're a component part fitting into this machine, you kill that very soul, that very spark.
You literally do. Yeah, you literally do. Yeah, you literally do that. Where can people go and find out more about your work and to get the book?
The book is on Amazon, The Living Organization by Norman Wolfe. They are welcome to go to my website, quantumleaders.com/podcast, and they have access to the first 3 chapters for free. They can contact me through either the Quantum Leaders website, which is my consulting company, quantumleaders.com, or they can go to thelivingorganization.com. Right now, they both go to the same website, but we're launching a new website for just the Living Organization community within the next few months.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Norman, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I really enjoyed the connections that you made with the people and the organization.
Yes.
And being in purpose, because listening to you, it's a trifecta. It all connects with each other.
It's a integrated, holistic system. It's not a separate piece of components. People over here and business over there. That's a bifurcation that we should eliminate.
Yeah, I love that very much. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
It was
amazing.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Thank you so much, and goodbye. So appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. Please subscribe to the podcast. Give us a 5-star review, a comment, and share this episode with one more person so that you can help us help more people. Thank you again. Until next time. Goodbye.